Moving on, Times now has accessed the details of the complaint copy that has been filed in that much controversial Air India case right now. This is, remember, the complaint that was filed by 70-year-old passenger who had written to Tata Group chairman, airing her ordeal, what she had to go through on the flight that was coming from New York to Delhi. In the complaint, she says, and I quote, "I would like to submit a complaint about my appalling experience traveling with Air India business class flight AI-102 seat 9A. For more details, it's over to you, Padmaja.
Much Priya. On Times Now, we've got the full complaint copy which details the horror of what happened that day. On the 26th of November 2022, during the course of the flight, shortly after lunch was served and the lights were switched off, a male business class passenger seated in 8A walked to my seat completely inebriated. He unzipped his pants and urinated on me and kept standing there until the person sitting next to me tapped him and told him to go back to his seat, at which point he staggered back to his seat. I immediately got up to notify the stewardess of what had happened. My clothes, shoes and bag was soaked in urine. The bag contained my passport, travel documents and currency. The flight staff refused to touch them, sprayed my bag and shoes with disinfectant and took me to the bathroom, gave me a set of airline pyjamas and socks. I asked the staff for a change of seat but was told that no other seats were available. However, another business class passenger who had witnessed my plight and was advocating for me pointed out that there were seats available in first class. The flight crew told me that the pilot had vetoed giving me a seat in first class. So Priya, pay attention to the number of derelictions in duty that were done. Here is a lady, an elderly one at that, who is soaking wet in somebody else's urine. First of all, for a man to be completely inebriated on flight is in itself an offense. Point number two, here is a lady who was soaked in urine. They just gave her a change of clothes. She wasn't given a different seat despite the fact that there were first class seats available. The pilot vetoed giving her a seat in first class. After I had been standing for 20 minutes, one of the senior flight staff offered me the small crew seat used by the airline staff, where I sat for about 2 hours. Now, anyone who has flown remembers that there are crew seats which are right there at the front next to the toilet where the crew is strapped in during takeoff and landing. This elderly lady, after being soaked in a passenger's urine, was made to sit there for 2 hours because the pilot decided that she couldn't be moved up to first class. What happened after that? I was then asked to return to the initial soiled seat. Although the staff had spread sheets on the seat, the area was still damp and reeking of urine, and I refused to sit there. I was then given the steward seat for the rest of the journey. In the meantime, one of the senior flight staff came to me and asked me how I wanted to handle the situation. I told them I wanted the man arrested immediately by the airport police. They asked me if I would like to talk to the ground staff, and I told them that I most certainly would. The flight staff were in the meanwhile also having discussions with the offender, who was sobering up by this time, and they told me that he wanted to apologize. I stated clearly I did not want to interact with him or see his face. All I wanted was his arrest on arrival. However, the crew brought the offender before me against my wishes, and we were made to sit opposite. This just gets more and more horrific. We were made to sit opposite each other in the crew seats. I was stunned when he started crying and profusely apologizing, begging me to not lodge a complaint against him because he is a family man and he did not want his wife and child to be affected by the incident. In my already distraught state, I was further disoriented by being made to confront and negotiate with the perpetrator of this horrific crime in close quarters. I told him his actions were inexcusable, but in the face of his pleading and my own shock, I found it difficult to insist on his arrest or press charges. I demanded from the airline staff that Air India reimburse me for my shoes and clothes, but they said they had nothing to do with it and a man in question should pay me and dry clean the shoes and clothes. They got my phone number, which they passed on to the offender for payment for my shoes. I subsequently returned the payment. I did not want to take his money. The Air India flight staff assured me I would be taken on a wheelchair to the baggage carousel and seen through a comfortable exit. On landing, I was put on a wheelchair and taken to the terminal, unloaded there to wait for the next wheelchair. The ground staff never came to assist me and take down my complaint. I waited for 30 minutes. I was so exhausted and shaken that I simply got up and walked to the immigration and collected my baggage. I met the flight staff again near the exit. I was taking my luggage. When I told the flight staff nobody assisted me, they called for a wheelchair to send me to the entrance. Not only was the Air India's crew deeply unprofessional, there are a number of failures worth pointing out. The crew did not show good judgment about how to serve alcohol. The crew was not proactive in managing a sensitive situation. My son-in-law sent a complaint to Air India on 27 November. They agreed to reimburse. To date, they have only issued a partial refund. This is shocking, to say the least. Anyone who's been hearing this, in fact, let's open the phone lines. Should the entire crew who was involved in this be sacked forthwith? Is there any reason for this kind of a crew? Can you imagine, Priya, that a lady is made to sit on a soiled seat because the pilot decided that she could not be sent up to first class? That she was then made to sit on the crew seat for 2 hours and then made to return to a soiled seat which was reeking of urine, and subsequently made to confront the man who had unzipped in front of her, flashed her and urinated all over her, despite her saying, "I don't want to do it." The kind of details that will make you tremble with horror.
Yes, and this could have been any of us. This is a New York Delhi flight. This is an elderly lady. Everybody from the air hostess to the pilot as well as to the ground staff later, this complaint later has exposed every single one of them. And the Times now is asking why should they not be sacked, because Padmaja, the airline, did not even come out with action or a police complaint, despite this letter now clearly telling us that the woman said all she wanted was arrest on arrival, and what they went ahead and did was try and attempt to broker peace. One wonders why this soft corner for somebody who was not just an unruly passenger. Some of the activities are so shameful that he indulged in that they also invite sections of the IPC. The police complaint should have been filed, which was not done.